Hello and welcome to Course 10. My name is Bayo, and I'm very excited to guide you through Module 1 of this course in our comprehensive cybersecurity training series. This module lays the foundation for understanding the defenses around the digital highways that we rely on daily. Whether you are securing a home router or an enterprise system, network and endpoint security principles, they remain very critical. Why is this important? Because 82% of breaches target network infrastructure. So attacks like the Colonial Pipeline ransomware incident, it shows us just how quickly a single vulnerability can spiral into a nationwide crisis. So in this module, we'll unpack what network security really means. We'll explore network segmentation techniques and dive into how we can control access to systems. And finally, we'll learn about intrusion detection and prevention tools that stop attackers in their tracks. So let's start by unlocking the basics. What is network security? Think of your network like a house. Network security is everything that you do to make sure no uninvited guests can get in, or if they do, they can't do much damage anyway. So let's look at network security, what it involves, and the tools that you can use. The very first one is firewalls. These are like bouncers at the door that are deciding who gets in or who gets out. And then we have intrusion detection systems, which is IDS. And these are motion detectors that notify you if someone or something strange is happening. And then we have encryption, and this turns your message into secret codes that only the right person can decode. And what's the goal here? This is to protect systems and the data flowing between them from unauthorized access or misuse or even attack. Let's shift our face a little bit to the key network security principles, which we talked about in previous courses. You remember the CIA triad? Well, it's the same CIA triad that we talk about, which is confidentiality, integrity, and availability, not the US CIA, which is the Central Intelligence Agency. No, not that one. Confidentiality. This one, it keeps information private. For example, your credit card details. When shopping online, it should only be visible to you and the store, not a hacker that is watching in the background. That's confidentiality. And then when it comes to integrity, you make sure that the information is not changed in transit. So imagine sending an invoice for $100 and it gets changed en route to $10,000. Integrity there is being tampered. And then we have availability, where systems need to be up and running when needed. So if a hospital's patient record system crashes, lives could be at risk. So let's examine the digital boogeymen, which are the common network security threats. The very first one we look at is DOS or DDoS attacks. These ones, they overload your network so that legitimate users can't access it. It's like jamming up a road with fake traffic. And then we have man-in-the-middle attacks. This is like someone listening in on a private conversation and altering messages in real time. And then another one is packet sniffing and spoofing. So imagine someone eavesdropping and then pretending to be you by copying your words and voice. And then we have the zero-day exploit. These, they target software vulnerabilities that no one has discovered yet, not even the software creators themselves. There's a real-world example here. The 2016 Dyn DDoS attack. In 2016, cyber attackers, they used IoT devices like baby monitors and DVRs with weak passwords. They used that to launch a massive DDoS attack. And what was the result? Sites like Twitter, Reddit, and Netflix, they all went down. And what was the lesson learned? Every connected device is a potential entry point, and defense must start before the attack. All right, let's shift our face to network segmentation for security. What is network segmentation? Imagine a cruise ship that's divided into watertight compartments. If one compartment is flooded, the ship still floats. That's what segmentation does. It isolates different parts of your network to stop threats from spreading. And we have different types of segmentation, really. The very first one is VLANs, which separates network traffic logically. even within shared infrastructure. And then we have another one, which is the DMZ. This is like a semi-public zone where public services like web servers, this is where they sit safely away from your internal network. That's the DMZ. And it's actually called the demilitarized zone. And then we have microsegmentation. And this is where you isolate workloads down to individual applications or containers. What are the benefits of network segmentation? Number one, it blocks lateral movement, which means a hacker getting access to one device can roam freely. That threat is contained within that device. It cannot roam freely within the network. And then we have reduces attack surfaces, which makes it harder to reach critical assets. And then it also improves efficiency, which is where fewer devices on a segment mean smoother operations. A real-world example here, the Target data breach of 2013. Hackers got in through an HVAC vendor. Poor segmentation allowed them to pivot into payment system. But with segmentation, the HVAC and POS systems, they should have been on completely separate segments. This is where we learn that isolation can actually be a lifesaver. All right, so we'll move to another topic, which is where we implement access control in networks. So we shift our attention now to something that's extremely critical in cybersecurity, access control. And what is access control? Access control is like managing a highly secure facility. Think of it like a security process that decides who can enter, what areas they can go into, and what actions that they can take once inside. In digital environment, access control regulates which users can access which systems or data or even applications. But it doesn't stop at the gate. It also controls what users can do with the access that they've gained. So let's visualize this a little bit. Imagine a hospital. Doctors can access medical records, but they can't access payroll files. Accountants can manage finances, but they don't need patient charts. The receptionist doesn't even need access to either of those files. That's access control in action. It's granting access on a need-to-know basis or need-to-do basis as well. The goal is very simple, but very vital. Minimize exposure of sensitive systems and reduce risk of internal or external threats. All right, let's now look at access control models. There are three main access control models that are used across organizations today. So let's explore them with easy to understand analogies, okay? The very first one is the role-based access control, and it's called RBAC, which means access is based on the user's job role. For example, a cashier in a retail store can access the sales terminal, but they cannot view employee payroll. An IT support analyst can reset passwords, but they shouldn't access private HR files. Roles are predefined, and access rights are granted to those roles, not directly to individuals. Think of it like a movie theater. Your ticket determines which room and seat that you get into. And then we have MAC, which is mandatory access control. This is the most strict and non-flexible model. Access is usually determined by clearance levels and data classifications like top secret or confidential or unclassified. You'll typically see this in government and military systems. Even administrators can't override these permissions unless explicitly allowed. So it's like working in a nuclear lab. You are allowed in certain rooms only if your clearance matches the sensitivity of the content. And then we have DAC, which is discretionary access control. Here, the data owner decides who gets access and what they can do with it. For example, if you create a shared folder on your computer, you decide who can read, who can write, or who can modify it. So it's more flexible but riskier if users are not careful. So it's like giving your house keys to friends. You trust them, but there's a risk if they lose that key or lend it to someone else. Why does this really matter? Choosing the right model, it helps to strike a balance between usability and security. High security environments might require MAC, which is mandatory access control, while most corporate settings, they go with RBAC, which is role-based access control, because it's easier to manage at scale. So let's now shift our attention to another model, which is the AAA model, which is authentication, authorization, and accounting. To manage access effectively, we use a trusted framework known as the AAA model, which is authentication, authorization, and accounting. So let's unpack each of them, and I'll use real-life analogies for you to understand a little better. Authentication is the first one. And in this case, this is the digital version of who are you. This is where you prove your identity using credentials like passwords, biometrics, like fingerprints or face recognition, or use smart cards or tokens. Think of logging into your phone using your Face ID. It verifies you before allowing access, right? And then authorization. Once you are authenticated, the system asks you, what are you allowed to do? Can you view a file? Can you edit it? Can you delete it? That's authorization for you. So it defines your privileges. You might be logged into a company portal, but you only have the read-only access to HR documents, which means that you can only read the document, but you cannot tamper with it. You cannot edit it. Neither can you delete it. That's authorization. And then accounting. This is the activity monitoring component. It tracks what you did, when you did it, and how long you were active. This is like a CCTV system that logs entries and exits. Accounting logs your actions for auditing and investigations. So together, this AAA, which is authentication, authorization, and accounting, they help to maintain transparency, traceability, and trust in any systems where users are granted access. There's a real-world example of the SolarWinds hack attack of 2020. This was one of the most devastating and far-reaching cyber attacks in recent history. Hackers infiltrated SolarWinds' Orion software update platform, and they used it to distribute malware to thousands of customers, including the US government agencies. Here is the kicker. Once inside, attackers moved laterally across networks with high-level privileges. The access controls in place, they were not granular, or they were not strict enough to stop them. So if tighter RBAC, which is role-based access control, or MAC, which is mandatory access control models, if they had been implemented, and if access logs were properly monitored, which is the accounting part, the attackers could have been detected earlier, or maybe they would have been restricted in movement. And what's the lesson here? Never assume one authentication check is enough. Always apply the principle of least privilege and monitor all user activity. All right, we'll move to another section, which is the intrusion detection and prevention system, which is IDPS. Okay, so what is IDPS? Let's bring this to life with a metaphor. Number one, IDS, which is the intrusion detection system, is like your home security camera. It watches everything happening and alerts you when it sees something strange. But just like cameras, it can't stop the burglar. It only warns you. And then we have the IPS, which is the intrusion prevention system. And this is like having a security guard who jumps into action if someone tries to break in. It doesn't just see the threat, it blocks it in real time. So in the cybersecurity world, an IDPS, which is a combination of IDS and IPS, so it monitors systems and network traffic for suspicious patterns and for unauthorized activity or even known attack methods. How does IDPS work, really? There are two primary ways that IDPS identifies threats. Number one is signature-based detection. And this works just like antivirus software. It looks for specific patterns or signatures of known threats. So if it sees one, it triggers an alert or blocks it. As an example, if a file tries to execute a known ransomware code, it gets flagged instantly. But there's a limitation to this signature-based detection. It may miss new or known threats because it only works by the signature that has been programmed into it. And then we have the anomaly-based detection. And this method, it uses machine learning or behavioral models. It learns what normal behavior looks like and flags anything that is out of the ordinary. As an example here, a user suddenly is downloading 1,000 files at 2 a.m. and gets flagged. Even if it's not a known malware pattern, it will still get flagged. So this type of IDPS, which is the anomaly-based detection, it's great for detecting zero-day attacks or insider threats. So many modern systems, they use both methods together to balance precision and flexibility, and that's why it's called IDPS. Remember, they both can stand alone as well as IDS, which is intrusion detection system, and IPS, which is intrusion prevention system. But new technologies are now combining both of them so they can balance precision and flexibility. All right, let's see how to deploy these types of IDPS. Okay, so the very first one is NIDS, which is network-based IDS. Network-based IDS meaning network-based intrusion detection system. This one monitors data packets flowing through the network, like checking everything passing through a highway toll. And this is great for detecting external attacks and large-scale anomalies. And we also have the HIDS, which is host-based IDS. Host-based IDS means host-based intrusion detection system. And this is installed on individual systems or devices. It watches local files, configurations, and logs. And this is perfect for spotting internal changes or unauthorized actions on that specific machine. So together, NIDS, which is network-based intrusion detection system, and HIDS, which is host-based intrusion detection system, they create a layered defense, watching both the broader network and individual hosts. Real-world example, we look at IDPS in banking. Let's say that a US-based bank has a policy that no employee logs in outside of the US during off hours. And suddenly, a login attempt comes from Russia at 3:14 a.m., accessing the finance server. Boom, the IPS, or which is the intrusion prevention system, will kick in. So using behavioral analytics, it immediately spots this as abnormal and automatically cuts off the session. At the same time, an alert is sent to the security team for further investigation. That's how powerful real-time monitoring and response can be. And what's the lesson here? With the right IDPS setup, you're not just watching threats, you are intercepting them before they even cause any damage at all. And what are the conclusion and key takeaways here? When we're building a secure network architecture, segmentation limits the blast radius of attacks, number one. Number two, access control enforces trust boundaries. Number three, IDPS systems, they offer proactive defense with real-time alerts and blocks. All right, congratulations, you've completed module 1 of course 10, which is network and endpoint security. You are now one step closer to becoming a cybersecurity powerhouse. So let's keep going to module 2, where we explore the best practices for securing servers, workstations, mobile devices, and IoT devices. And I will see you there. Thank you.